As I take you through to my talk today, I am going to take you through a vista of mental health journeys, both mine and perhaps the people that I work with. So back when I was an early career psychologist, I used to make videos for Instagram for mental health advocacy. Sometimes they would be my videos, sometimes they would be in collaboration with other organizations. And one such organization was making a video on A to Z for mental health. So like A for acceptance, B for boundaries, and so on. I was invited to come in at the letter P. And the first thing that came to me through that was P for perspective. The way I used to explain about that was actually wearing different sunglasses, taking them off, wearing another one, and taking them off. The idea was that I was looking at the same room, at the same space, but perhaps with a different lens. What was happening was maybe if I put a slightly brown one, I would see a more brown tinge to my environment. If I was seeing a slightly blacker one, I would see a slight black tinge to the environment. So with that, I wanted to explain that perspective is a way of looking at things in the field of psychology. That is something that we identify as a unique individual's own context, a person's individuality coming through the lenses that you put on, which is different for each person as they come along. So it's like having each person's unique individual glasses. But the thing with glasses is that they can get foggy. They may break, there may be problems where you start seeing the sun in through your eyes. They may not look good on your face anymore. So you may say a simple solution there is to just change the glasses, wear new ones. But what if I tell you this time that what if you've grown comfortable with these glasses? You've grown an attachment to them. Maybe they fit perfectly on your head, on your eyes, and the way you see things through them is something that you really like. What's going to happen is you're going to wear them again and again and again, and what is going to happen after that is that you're slowly going to develop similar ways or similar lens of looking at the same thing as you keep going forward. With that, what might happen is you may develop certain routines, certain ways of being in life, ways that you show up in relationships, ways that you show up as an individual. All of that may be shaped by just one lens, and it would start ending up limiting your experience and forming patterns in your life. Patterns that stay, patterns that continue to come through your life. My own such experience, which set a pattern, was back in my teenage years, where I used to immediately find myself getting overwhelmed, and tears would drop out of my eyes. I would be feeling different emotions like angry, upset, but the reaction to everything was just tears out of my eyes. It was only later when I went to therapy when I realized that what was really happening was I was holding back emotions. And I was holding them to a point till the final straw, till even the smallest thing would take me over the edge. So what was happening there was I was overwhelming myself, my body, my system, till it finally had to crack when anything small happened, anything in the home, anything in the family, anything in the places that I worked with, and I would actually go in and feel like I would be crying. But what came to my rescue here was my first love, dance. Dance is where I was able to express some of those feelings out through my body in many different ways. Now, I'm not just talking any dance, like play some music and dance, but it was almost like I would be feeling sad and I would play a sad song like, I don't want to fall to pieces. And I would literally like be on the ground and sitting in a corner as that music was playing, doing really slow movements. And perhaps when I would feel angry, it would be like, in the end, it doesn't even matter, right? And really that would help like put my body's energy out there and actually help me dissipate some of those emotions. So I realized what was happening for me by coincidence here was that my body was actually helping me express, helping me understand my different patterns and how I work through them. So to my surprise, when later on I was exploring careers and I found the field of dance movement therapy, it made me really excited because it blended two of my loves of dance and psychology together. So much so that my own experience of it had a great impact, and I really wanted to spread it out everywhere. Spread it to perhaps the people that I knew, my colleagues, my students, and different places that I could take it to, and perhaps to you all today a little bit. So get up, as you may have to join in a little bit of doing a small exercise wherever you sit. So I'm going to invite you all to ask to do some gestures, but you only have to respond with your body. You do not have to respond with words. So for example, if I ask you to say hi, can everyone try how you would say hi with your body? Yes, I can see a lot of waves back there. All right. Okay, how about a yes? Can you try to say a yes with your body? Okay, I can see some nods, I can see thumbs up. Great. Now, what if I move further and look at words like driving? Can everyone show me driving? Okay, a lot of wheels turning. Great. Can everyone show me swimming? Oh, yes. So we all are getting into the pool as we do that. Right. Now, what if I ask you to flip the switch here? So this is actually swimming and this is driving, okay? I'm going to invite you to say the words. I'm going to say the word again and I'll invite you to participate and do that. Can you all try and show me driving now? Yeah. Can you all show me swimming now? Right. Okay. Did you notice how it took you a few milliseconds extra to let your body process the different meaning that we just put to it? And perhaps there was some muscle discomfort to be like, oh, is this driving? Is this really happening? So what happens is our body actually puts meaning to everything that we learn, that we see in the world. Now, of course, these are the small words that we all know perhaps, but our body puts meaning to experiences that we have, events that we go to, feelings that we feel, relationships that kind of end up coming up in our life. And that is the kind of meaning that we are looking at when we are trying to understand the mind-body connection. And we are trying to understand how it works together. To give you a better example of how mind-body are connected, I'm going to take you all through a couple of cases that can show up as something different, but maybe something different else if we consider the mind-body context. So case one is of a boy. He gets up every Tuesday morning to go to school, but starts having a stomachache. And then he feels like he doesn't want to go to the school anymore. Now, over here, we may hypothesize that it may be a returning stomach bug. This child may be feeling something odd in the stomach every week and something might be happening. We should take him to a doctor. But what might also be happening here could actually be that on Tuesday, there's a specific class whose teacher scolds this child. Maybe somebody calls him out in that class and he feels very discomforted and fearful. Now, this child does not know how to express fear per se. So the body helps in telling him that, here's the fear, you shouldn't go to school because something bad is going to happen. Case two is of a woman who suddenly loses her appetite or perhaps feel like there are urges to vomit. So what we may be looking at when we look at this woman's case is that actually there might be a time in her life where she may have been shamed for the kind of body that she had, and that led to developing a distorted image. So much so that she felt like her nervous system could not necessarily take the same amount of things because there was a loss in appetite, or also perhaps feel like my body weight is too much even if I eat a little bit, and feel the need to vomit right after that. Case three is of a person who wakes up in the middle of the night feeling really hot, feeling like there's a racing heartbeat there, lot of sweating happening, and over here we may say there may be temperature changes. So it's just possible that let's crank up the AC, let's change the bed covers, that's all that may be happening. But what may be happening underneath here is that actually this person may have had a bad day. They may be anticipating a tough next day. And because of that, they're experiencing worry, anxiety, which also shows up in the form of perspiration, racing heartbeat, and perhaps even difficulty sleeping. So what may be happening if you look at is that there are a lot of underlying things that are coming up here in these cases, and this is where therapy actually helps. Therapy actually helps us expand that perspective, build out a little bit of the idea of what is happening here, what is happening in this person context, what may be happening in this person's life that has led this person to feel like this, and then perhaps help us kind of focus out a little bit to see the larger picture and identify what's actually going on. An example I use a lot in my therapy sessions with clients is that of an angel and devil on the shoulder that you may have seen in like movies and cinemas, and they really highlight voices that's happening in the person's mind, right? So that's the example that I also use in therapy to bring openness to the conflict of two different inner voices, two different types of thoughts that might be coming up, or maybe like mind saying something, body saying something else. And oftentimes what happens when we put that to light is a statement that comes up from my clients is, I didn't think of it like that. And that is more common than we know. So what is happening there is that we haven't actually spent time thinking about what are the other ways in things that could be happening. So let's take the example of what happened right now with the whole light going off. What if I ended up losing my track completely and forgetting the speech? I would say, I'm so forgetful. And maybe then when I start walking off the stage, I slip the stairs and I'm going to say, I'm so forgetful. And then when I'm reaching home, I get out of the cab and forget to pay the cab driver, I'm going to say, I missed that too. I'm so forgetful. Now, the amount of times that I have said this to myself, what might happen is I actually might start believing that I am forgetful. And next time, when even something as simple as somebody else's water bottle falling right there might happen, I would say it may be because of something I said. And that's not happening just because these three incidences happened, but because maybe there's part of my life that could have highlighted these things a lot. Somebody may have told me, oh, you keep forgetting, oh, you don't have a great memory, or there may be times where I may not have actually memorized well in my school exams. All of that would have led me to come to this point and start believing that I'm a forgetful person. But again, what might be happening here and the way that we can work through that is actually zooming into the individual's life, identifying the context, really identifying what's going on and stepping out again. So then I may be able to expand my perspective and perhaps even look at the larger picture by saying that, oh, I may have forgotten the speech because actually the lights went off, which they did here, and I may have actually slipped there because some water may have fallen. Or I missed giving the money to the cab driver, but it's also possible that the cab driver actually never asked me for it. So it was not my own responsibility. So when I do look at the larger picture, I can always say something that is happening. Now, something that reminds me of my own therapy space in my own time is how I also ended up holding a lot through my body. I ended up holding a lot of emotions, everything that would happen, and it would be like I would have a very stressful moment for like, let's say a week, 2 weeks, and then suddenly after that I would fall sick. So that ended up happening for a while, and it also became like a running joke in my family and with people I knew that, you know what, I'm going to get sick that day when all of this ends. But actually, when I explored within therapy and tried to identify what was happening, was that my body was carrying stress for me that I couldn't even see. So with different techniques that I learned within the therapy space, different self-reflection strategies that I actually did put into the place over there, I started maybe drawing some boundaries. I started drawing boundaries about maybe closing things on time, making sure I'm not doing more than I can take on in a day, even if it is really stressful. But I would be lying if I told you that everything is fine, that doesn't happen to me anymore. Because that's what the journey of therapy can be like. It can feel like there are some ups and there are some downs. There are some days where everything is fine, but something else happens and it takes me down again. But then I'm up again and I'm down again. So over there, what you may feel like is that, what's the point? This is life anyway. There are so many ups and downs. But I'm going to invite you to expand that perspective there and actually see what is happening. What is happening here is that there may be a slight upward trajectory that may be coming up. What's happening there is that I may be bouncing up slightly quicker. I may not be falling back into the same trigger at the same time, and that is what is actually making the journey more and more moving forward. I may be a bit more consistent with how I take care of myself and how I am in my life and relationships, and that would actually make things better. So all of this, as we're talking so much about mind, body, perspective, patterns, actually reminds me of one of my famous favorite and famous psychologist, Carl Rogers. Something that he said really sticks with me in my practice, and I hope that it sticks with you as I say that as well, is that the curious paradox is that just when I accept myself as I am, that is when I can change. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me today.